The film SYERAA NARASIMHA REDDY is a patriotic war story based on the real-life man Rayalaseema Reddy, who fought against the British East India Company in the mid-18th century. This is a blockbuster film starring Chiranjeevi, the megastar of the Telugu film industry, produced by his son Ram Charan, and inviting stars from other speaking regions of India. This is a subgenre of Telugu action films called Rayalaseema faction films. The Telugu speaking region consists of three regions: Telangana, coastal Andhra, also simply called Andhra, and Rayalaseema, of which the southernmost region, Rayalaseema, is located at the southern end of the Deccan Plateau and is considered a somewhat backward region. Faction films became popular in the late 1990s, depicting the violent conflict between local factionists, the rulers of a village called Factionists. Movies that have been screened and distributed in Japan include The Great Plateau of Love and Hate, 1997, You Are the One, You Are, 2010, and Aravinda and Veera, 2018, which are currently being distributed by Jaiho. The factionists who appear in the film are large landowners and agricultural capitalists who have large families and numerous servants and tenants, and who act like the unofficial heads of their villages. They decide to fight for profit and honor. They are described as descendants of small feudal lords from the pre-independence era of India. The factionists of Rayalaseema have been exaggerated and sometimes ridiculed as relics of an earlier era, in their portrayal in movies as a unique existence not seen in other modern regions. So, what was their ancestor like? From the early 14th century to the mid-17th century, the rulers of villages or groups of villages that were subject to the kingdom of Vijayanagara, which ruled most of southern India, became independent after the kingdom's demise and were called Palegadu in Telugu, becoming small feudal lords. Palegadu is a historical term that has been corrupted into English as polygar. The descendants of these polygars in Rayalaseema are modern factionists. In the 18th century, the British East India Company began to aim for political control over India rather than a trade monopoly, and began to exercise partial control in the latter half of the 18th century. At first, the polygars did not consider the East India Company, a unique private company with an army and a tax collection mechanism, to be a major threat. However, things changed in the 19th century. The East India Company took advantage of conflicts within the same family over family inheritance and conflicts between polygars, and took territory from them one after another. The story takes place in Renadu, an old name for Rayalaseema, which was once part of the Nizam Kingdom of Hyderabad. But in 1800 it was ceded to the East India Company and incorporated into the Madras province, which was directly under British control. As a result, the approximately 80 polygars in the area were treated as nominal chiefs and were given pensions. Meanwhile, farmers began to be taxed directly under the East India Company's tax system called the Rayatawari system. Narasimha Reddy was born in 1806 as the third son of a polygar in Yarawada, a village in today's Natyala district, Andhra Pradesh. His childhood was spent in Nosum, about 15 kilometers away, where he was adopted by his maternal grandfather, But in 1821, when he was 15 years old, his Nasum family was disbanded. He then returned to his home in Yarawada and lived with his two older brothers, sharing their pension. During this period, the East India Company reassigned village chiefs and suspended their authority in order to improve their governance structure and enforce a thorough tax system. And they also imposed heavy taxes on individual farmers, which led to people's anger. Against this background, NARASIMHA rebels rose up, and in 1846 he attacked the East India Company's branch in Koilakuntla, one of the districts of today's Nandyala district, and killed the soldiers guarding it, looted from the tax warehouse. J.H. Cochrane, the magistrate at the headquarters of Kadaba, today's capital of Kadaba district, immediately ordered the subjugation and sent troops. After Narasimha evacuated his wife and children, he fled to the Nalamala forest and hid there, but was cornered and captured by a subjugation party. Sentenced to death at trial, he was publicly executed in front of over 2,000 people in Iraq in February 1847, and his corpse, or head, remained on display until 1877. It is said that his accomplishments became folk songs and folk tales that were passed down from generation to generation. The entire story follows a similar course to the countless regional revolts that occurred across India from the end of the 18th century to the mid-19th century. Of course, no rebellion was ultimately successful, and all leaders were killed in battle or executed. What was unique about Narasimha Reddy's rebellion was that he was a former ruler, and the village chiefs, Brahmins, farmers, and even people from the discriminated classes joined him, transcending class boundaries. There were many joint struggles. This is perhaps the significance of presenting a dramatization of his story to people today as a film.